Tonight's meeting to order for the Norfolk School Committee for Tuesday, February 9th, time is 7:03 p.m. In accordance with the Governor's Order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 20, relating to the 2020 coronavirus outbreak emergency, the February 9th, 2021, 7 p.m. Norfolk School Committee meeting held remotely. Alternate public access to this meeting shall be done through NCTV. The link to watch is on YouTube at YouTube. I won't read the whole link. This application will allow users to view the live meeting. Questions and comments submitted prior to the meeting will be read by the chair during the open public comment. The meeting will be recorded for future rebroadcast by Norfolk Community Television. School committee meeting documents may be found on the Norfolk Public Schools website at www.norfolk.k12.ma.us. Questions and comments can be submitted to schoolcommitteequestions@norfolk.k12.ma.us. Please note, questions for the school committee must be submitted prior to 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting in order for them to be read at the meeting. And as we start out every meeting, we read the mission statement, which is the Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. Roll call, please.
Medora Champagne.
Thomas Doyle. That's all right. It all works out. All right. We did not have any public comments, so we're going to move right into the correspondence, the first of which is for the school gift fund, and we'll eventually need a motion on this, but we have received a number of gifts totaling $4,125. They are 5 of them from the Norfolk PTO for various activities or various things that they'll benefit for both Freeman Kennedy and HOD. We also have individual gifts from Allison and Jason Kulinane. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. $1,800 for purchasing diverse books for district-wide, as well as a $600 gift from Michael and Susan Klein in the amount of a donation for HOD in particular. So altogether, those gifts total $4,125. So we would need a motion in order to accept those.
I move to accept the gifts as described from the PTO as well as the Cullinanes. Again, apologies if I'm mispronouncing, and the Kleins as described in the correspondence.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion beyond
Just thank you
for everyone?
Thank you.
Very generous. The
Thank you.
Cullinans, the Kleins, and PTO, as usual. Thank you. Very generous.
Yep, much appreciated.
The donation for the diverse books was part of the fundraiser that group did over the summer. So that's just an additional funds for diversifying our classroom libraries.
Oh, excellent.
Fantastic.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Secondly, everybody should have in their packets a letter from Representative Sean Dooley that describes the efforts of the state so far, or the legislature, if you will, as far as their role in combating coronavirus and their efforts to help out everyone. So I hope everybody's had a chance to read that. We don't have to read it into thing, but it is included within the our record, so that if anyone wants to have access to it, they're more than welcome to. So I appreciate that being passed along to us. It's always nice to get a little more detail as far as things going on. So that is appreciated. And then we do have a retirement. Our friend Mrs. Niedzwiecki is going to be calling it a career. So that's someone I think we've all dealt with. I know my kids did, so it was great. So hold on, let me get to my little portion here.
And we will, at a later meeting, recognize the retirees as we usually bring them back. This is just notice for the committee that Ms. Niedzwiecki has officially submitted her retirement.
Yeah, so typically for, I think Shannon and Sarah both know this, we do usually make a pretty big thing of this, and obviously well, snow kind of did it tonight, but in general, and we can't really make a big thing of it as much as we want to. So yeah, we'll definitely have it back, and it's always kind of a fun thing that I've always really enjoyed over the years. Just getting a chance to say thank you for people who have dedicated their entire professional life to this, and it's fantastic, and certainly wish them well on a well-deserved retirement. So certainly sorry to see her go, but also very appreciative of her efforts, and we look forward to embarrassing her publicly by making a whole big spectacle of it. So that should be fun. And let's see. And we're moving on to public library, the building use request. We're going to need a vote on this, and bear with me a second. I'm trying to actually get the document to pull up. It's arguing with me at the moment, so.
I can summarize it, Thomas. The
Yeah, if you don't mind, sorry.
Sure. Friends of the Norfolk Public Library do an annual book sale as a fundraiser for the library. They are asking to use the school facilities and asking the school committee to waive the fee that we usually charge for renting facilities. They're looking for a larger space to hold the event this year, obviously as in response to COVID. And the dates they are using will be after the school year ends. So it's June 29th where they would have things delivered. And I believe the book sale will be on the July 2nd and 3rd. So we don't have any conflicts. The space is available. The library is a great partner for all of our activities, and all they're requesting is permission to waive the fee because it's a fundraiser for the town.
All right, so basically we would need a motion to allow them to do that on, was it June 29th? Is that the date you just said?
When they'll have materials delivered, it's July 2nd and 3rd will be.
I say, okay, thank you.
And Ingrid, is that I'm sorry, is that in the cafeteria, the gymnasium?
I think that they are looking for the gymnasium space. I'm just taking
That makes sense.
I don't think I don't see on it that they're requesting a
Yeah, it didn't clarify, did it?
But I think we were thinking of the gymnasium for that.
All right, so do we have a motion to allow the public library to use that space as described?
I'll make a motion. Oh,
Go for
I
it.
never do.
You're moving. You're moving.
I'm on it tonight.
Get it?
Yes, I'll make a motion to allow the Friends of Norfolk Public Library to use the Freeman Kennedy School for their book sale and waive the fee.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. so
I'm going to abstain since there's a little conflict of interest there.
Was wondering what you did there, Sarah.
Thank you, guys.
I think it's okay. All right. So then moving on, I think we'll go over to Ingrid's portion of the evening.
Great. If it's okay with the committee, I would like to switch the order of our agenda. We have Dr. Tupper here tonight to present on the preschool programming and fees. So I'd like to let her go first so she can get on with her night after a really long day. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tupper. She's going to highlight for you recommended changes to the programs for next year and talk about the recommendations for tuition. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having us tonight. And I always appreciate being able to talk about special education programming and preschool programming in particular. So in your package, you'll find a summary of the current programming and projected programming for preschool services this year and for next year. And the bottom line is that we're not recommending any changes for next year. The programming that we had in place for this year is what we're recommending for next year. It's just a little background about preschool programming. The preschool service is two types of learners, typically developing students and those identified with special education needs. Our programming includes both typical and special ed students, and that particular program is what we consider integrated programming. And non-integrated programming is specific programming for just special education students. So the district is legally required to provide preschool programming for special needs students if special education teams determine that they qualify for these services by the age of 3. So I'm going to mention a couple of dates that pertain to that as well at the end of my presentation. Basically, when we look at the programming for next year, I'm just gonna, hold on, grab my really quick. We have a couple programs for 3-year-olds, and then we have a couple programs for 4-year-olds. We have 2 half-day programs for 3-year-olds. We have a 2-day program for $137.50 a month, and we have a 3-day program for $206.25 a month. And then I had given those specific details about the programs. We have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday, with specific non-integrated times as well offered for the special education students. We have one program that's a multi-age program that's typically taught by Mara Gillerin. It's a 5-day, half-day program. The integrated portion is 5-day half-days, and then the non-integrated is 4 half-day afternoons. And that tuition is $343.53. We have a 4-year-old program by Julie Gallagher. That was a change that we had recommended last year. It's a little bit of a, at the time we called it the hybrid program, but now hybrid has a lot of associations to it, right? So anyway, it is a hybrid program. It's a 2-day full day and a 3-day half-day program. And it's $522.50 a month. And then we have our 5-day full day program. Ellen Versbrill typically teaches that, and that's $700.80 a month. So our start times are 9 o'clock in the morning, and our half-day programs end at 11:30, and our full-day programs end at 2:45. So I'm just wondering if anyone has any questions. Last year we did increase the tuition just a little bit, so I think the tuition is good for this year in terms of recommendations. And any questions about programming?
Dr. Topper, I have a question. I believe it, and I apologize if it's on the website.
Yep.
I'm sure it's a burning question because of how lovely the preschool programs are in Norfolk, and it's such a,
Yep.
Lottery to get in because it's so amazing. But we are restricted because of many reasons. We can't
Sure.
allow everyone in. When is the date that people would be notified? Do you know that at this point?
Yeah, so that's how I was going to close my presentation.
Oh,
tonight.
sorry.
Dang
it.
I know. No, great question, Jennifer. So upon, approval from school committee, we plan to go live with our registration on Friday. So the 12th. So not tomorrow, but the next day, on Friday. Our preschool orientation, we had wanted to offer that first before we went live with registration so that the community could better understand our programming options. So orientation is going to go live on Thursday evening, February 11th, and registration will go live on Friday morning, the 12th. And then we also, I'll use this as an opportunity to kind of promote our child find obligation as well. And that will be on the afternoon of March 24th. So if any family has any, concerns about their children, they can bring them in for screening on March 24th. Okay. So those are 3 really important dates 2 of them are happening this week on Thursday and Friday. Yeah.
Is there a date yet though? If they're registering
For the lottery?
February, yeah. Will people know by March or April or
March 15th. They'll know by March 15th. Yes. So we'll be conducting the lottery on the 15th, and then families will be notified the week of the 15th. So the 15th, I think, is a Monday. I'm sorry. You know what? Registration closes on the 15th. I apologize. And we conduct the lottery on
I knew it was Dr. Alardi.
Yes. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Dr. Topper, I'm not trying to hold you down to the date.
No,
I know
no,
it's
no.
usually around
Actually, I'm
St.
looking
Patty's.
at it right now. I'm sorry. So registration closes on March 12th. We're giving everyone 3 weeks to register. And the lottery will be conducted on March 15th, which is a Monday. And then families will be notified that week.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one last question. The screening, is that something people sign up for online you're anticipating? They just go to the website and
Yes.
they'll
Yeah,
sign
they'll be
up.
able to sign up right on the
Okay.
website. there'll be a
Perfect.
contact information regarding that. Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Sure.
So we do need a vote. It's the school committee has to vote to approve the preschool fees. And as Dr. Tupper said, we are not recommending an increase. We did make an adjustment to the preschool fees last year.
Okay, so do we have a motion to leave the fees the same as described?
I move to approve leaving the fees for preschool in the Norfolk School District as described and the same as last year.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Second.
Great.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tupper.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
All
good
right. All right. Thank you. Take care.
All right, I'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Per the school committee policy, I have to provide the committee with a quarterly update on reports and investigations of bullying. For the second quarter of the school year, which went from November through February 1st, we did not have any discipline issues or reports at either building of bullying. We continue to promote our SEL programs and active anti-bullying instruction at all grade levels, but we don't have anything to report at this time. Any questions on that?
Nice to hear.
All right, moving on, we have the budget subcommittee, and I've been working on preparing a preliminary budget. We have a budget, as I'm going to review with you tonight, does include some additional staffing to meet the current needs and some restorations of positions that were cut last year. It does not include any new programs or any new expansion. It's a draft budget at this point because we still have several pending contracts that are not settled, and we'll have to make those adjustments once we finish negotiating contracts. We'll make the final adjustments. But the main content of the budget is complete. What we are looking at this time is meeting all of our contractual obligations for union and non-union staff for steps and lane changes. We are looking to restore last year in our budget process and in the school committee approved budget, we added an assistant principal position to make a full-time assistant principal at each of the two school buildings. Based on the cuts that the select board made and the town made to our budget, we had to eliminate that position last year. We are looking to restore that 1-0 assistant principal. That would be, and again, we have an opening this year. We did not fill the current assistant principal, so we will be searching for two positions next year, one at each of the school buildings. We also this year did not fill the librarian position that was cut from the Freeman Kennedy School. We'll need to restore that to bring the library program back. That was one of the positions that we chose to not renew for this year because of the structure of the COVID learning. We're not having students visit the library. We're not circulating books the way we typically do. But that's been a longstanding position that we've had, and it's essential to our curriculum. So we need to restore that position. We will also need to look at a 0.2 increase for art and for music at the H. Olive Day School as we have additional classes there. And once we transition back to an in-person learning model, we will need additional staff time to meet the requirements to deliver our specials as we typically do in a typical school year. We are also looking to, we had a 0.5 technology integration position that we also did not fill for this year at the H. Olive Day. We're looking to increase that to a full-time position. And that's for two different reasons. One, for several years, we've had that as a 0.5 tech integration teacher, and we've really struggled in terms of recruitment and filling that position. We haven't been able to fill it for 2 years, and we ended up contracting out with a retired teacher to fill that vacancy. But it's really tough in this marketplace to find a qualified candidate for a 0.5 position. Additionally, as you are well aware of, we've significantly expanded our user environment. We have a lot more devices that we have in the schools, but in addition to that, all of our curriculum now is web-based and has technology components to it. We have 1,000 students in the district. We have 200 staff members that are users, and we also support parents at home. We are very short-staffed in the break-fix area. We only have 2 full-time people that handle all of the maintenance of our server equipment, our phone systems, security systems, and all of the equipment and devices and technology that we have in the district. This year, through grant funding, we were able to add an additional break-fix position, but that goes away at the end of this fiscal year. So by increasing the tech integration position from 0.5 to full-time, we're hoping that that person can also, will have better recruiting power, but that person will also be able to help support the maintenance of our network and our user environment. We are also looking to add a full-time developmental math assistant. We have been short-staffed this year at the Freeman Kennedy for math. We had a 0.5 vacancy in the beginning of the school year that we have been unable to fill. As you are aware, there's a real shortage of teaching staff given the COVID situation. So we weren't able to fill that 0.5 position. We will be refilling that next year. So we will be bringing back that additional 0.5 math teacher. It's in the budget because it was just unfilled. But we're looking to add to that an additional full-time developmental math specialist. Given the way the learning models have rolled out this year and the amount of time students have spent learning remotely, we know some of our students are going to have some learning gaps, and we feel that it's important to have additional support available to help work with those students and help close those gaps as they return to school in the fall. We are also looking to add a 0.5 library assistant to the H. Holiday School. We used to have a full-time position there. We had Mary Carney, whom many of you know and love. And when she left, we filled that position with a 0.8 school librarian. We don't have a full-time person in the library anymore. Again, with additional classes at the library and a significant decline in our volunteer pool for the library, we need additional support there. So we're looking for a 0.5 library assistant. That's very similar to how the model works at the Freeman. We have a 0.9 library teacher and a 0.5 assistant that manages circulation, inventory, and supporting those classes. The other two position increases, we're looking for a 0.1 increase to the team chair position. I'll speak to it in a minute, but we are reducing, or we are not seeking to restore a 0.5 school psychologist position. We don't have the budget revenue to do that right now. We'd like to increase our team chair position by 0.1. Our current team chair is also a licensed psychologist, a school psychologist who could assist if there's an overflow in testing demands, but also help manage the number of IEP meetings that we have on a regular basis. That was also added last year in the budget, and we had to reduce that due to spending cuts. We need to increase an occupational therapy position by 0.1. 0.1 is a half a day to meet the service requirements. We have a new program, a therapeutic program for students on the autism spectrum at the Freeman Kennedy School. We don't have sufficient staffing to cover those needs and services, so we need to increase that by a half a day. And then we will need to bring back the 2 lunch monitor positions that we did not fill this year. Because of the way that students are currently having lunch, they're not going to the cafeteria. We anticipate resuming that next year, so we will have to bring those positions back. What we are not asking for at this time is we are, again, not filling the school psychologist position that was eliminated last year. We would like in the future to be able to add a full-time additional developmental math teacher. For budget reasons, we're looking at an assistant for next year, but hope to grow that department. We also have a rapidly growing population of students that are English language learners in the district. And that with that rate of growth, we are going to need next year to think about an additional 0.5 ELL teacher or an assistant to support the programmatic needs of students. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we're really short-staffed on the technology side, and we will in the future need to look at expanding the network support. And then last, we have over the past several years seen a significant increase in building use over the summer. The rec department uses our buildings to run summer programs. We have a pretty substantial summer program that the district runs for students who have special educational needs who require tutoring. That difficult for our summer custodial team to fully clean and turn the building over before the start of the second year. So in the future, we would like to expand the temporary help that we bring in to help clean the buildings in the summer. But all of those things are that I just mentioned are things that we are not bringing forward. We know that the town has some significant financial restrictions this year, and we are really looking to ask for the essential services that we need to provide level service to what we had prior to COVID. So again, this is not an expansion budget. It's not a wish list budget. This is essential items that we really need to operate the schools next year. At this time, we're at about a 4.5% increase over budget from last year, which is about 589,000. I do believe that we will be adjusting that slightly higher because, again, we have several unsettled contracts, and that does not reflect the COLA that we will likely need to meet for the multiple groups that we're still working with. So this is just a preliminary draft of the budget. But the positions won't be changing that we're including, and the expense side of the budget is complete. So we wanted to share it with the committee tonight in case you have any feedback or questions prior to our next meeting where we will be holding a public hearing on the budget. The full budget document is also included in your packet with all of the goals and narratives for every department. Thomas and Medora, you can feel free to jump in if there's things that I missed or any additional points you want to make, and then we can take any questions.
The only thing I can think of is just regarding the percentage you just stated, the thing to bear in mind what the percentage was last year. So we're very much at a point we're playing catch up for last year. So people may, 4.5%. You have to understand it was in the threes last year. So we took the cut last year. So we need to build that back up. So in essence, it's a 2-year project just to get sort of back to a starting point. So I think that's an important distinction for people to understand in regards to the percentage itself.
That's right. We had a request last year, which was a bare bones essential service request, and it was about 4.25. And after the cuts that we had to make, we were down to a 2.6% increase. So this increase reflects what you typically need to open just with level services from year to year, which is 3%, plus what we lost in the prior year, which was over 1.6%. So it's very, as Thomas said, this is bringing us back up to level of where we were prior to the COVID emergency.
And I think fair to note as well, just big picture, that what we're talking about to get back to that point of just a basic level services for the enrollment that we're seeing in the school, those are positions that we would not have been able to feasibly cut, but for a remote hybrid learning model. Not having the librarians, not having the assistant principals, I think everyone is fully anticipating a full return to learning going into next year. We have to have those positions. Those aren't, flexible wish list items. Those are core staff, structure of the district positions that have to be filled. And the addition of math specialists, that's just the district in good faith trying to catch up, in addition to catching up financially, trying to make sure that these students are being afforded every opportunity to catch up and get back into the flow of where they should be from a learning standpoint.
Absolutely. Another thing that we're looking at, and I know we talked at length last year when we talked about the assistant principal position, but we are anticipating in doing some restructuring of roles and responsibilities. And we do think that the assistant principals, when we have a full-time person in each building, will be able to take over the responsibility for writing and monitoring 504 accommodation plans for students who have needs. That responsibility currently falls with our guidance counselors. So if we are able to make that shift, it will free significant time for mental health support, additionally to help students return to school successfully. So there's another component to that too.
That was my question, Ingrid. I was wondering how we were doing with counselors because I'm anticipating that there will be some huge adjustments coming back.
We are anticipating that, and there's a couple of things that we're doing. One, we are looking to take some of the administrative portions off of our current counselors so that they can maximize their skill set in the counseling and support for students. There is some earmark funding potentially coming from the state to support additional mental health services. So we will be looking at how we want to creatively use that. I'll be honest, we've advertised all year for a grant-funded position for a social worker. There's a serious shortage of mental health staff. So that's why in thinking about the assistant principal's roles, we were trying to think about how do we maximize the current staff that we have in a counseling capacity. So that's what we're looking at, because even if there's additional funding, it's really tough to fill. We were not successful, and we really aggressively tried to recruit for that position. So, but we are looking at some other consulting services. We have a partnership that we've developed through Dot Pearl has worked on that, our wellness director, with Arbor Counseling. We have a new partnership with Bristol Community Counseling that will provide family-based therapy at school or individual counseling for students at school through their medical insurance. So we are really expanding our network and leveraging other local providers to support our students. Any other budget questions?
I just have one quick one, and it was similar to Thomas. The clarification on that percentage was helpful to know compared to last year. And there may not be an average, but what is that percentage typically when there's not a pandemic? Is there anything to compare that to on average? Just
it's not dramatically high.
I didn't see it. That's why I was asking. It doesn't seem high.
Do level service from one year to the next typically takes the district about 3% because you do have steps and lanes and COLA increases that you have to build into your budget. So it's typically 3%. When I do the budget presentation, I'll also review the budget history of the district because there was a period of time between 2009 and 2013 that we've talked about a lot where the district had 0% and -1% and massive cuts were made. So we've been in rebuilding mode for the last probably 9 years now. And typically our percentages have been 4.25%, 4.5%, close to not, I think we're going to end up probably around 5% or something like that. But it's not dramatically higher than we've asked for in the past. The town department, financial department has asked has asked all departments to come in with a 0% increase and a 3% increase. The budget subcommittee, in reviewing all of our options, felt that was not a manageable expectation for the schools, given the cuts that we absorbed. So we are recommending going forward with the larger increase, which is a needs-based budget, level service budget, and working with the town to see how close they can get to supporting what we critically need.
That's helpful.
If I could pop off real quick, I'm sorry, just to kind of expand on what Ingrid was just saying, Shannon, we were still playing catch up from those bad years. We were in, for 4.25%, 4.5%, but as we were trying to recoup the losses from those years during the downturn, enrollment started growing. And so you're always paying catch up with, you're increasing a little bit each year into what should be something that's catching you up, but you're always still chasing it because we had that many more students coming into I stand by the assertion that we're playing catch up this year, but we've been doing that for about a decade too. So it's kind of a continual cycle.
That makes sense, and that's why I was curious in seeing that number. It, like you said, Ingrid, it didn't seem very high, knowing that you've all talked about and knowing the history of playing catch up, and now getting a pandemic on top of that, and then in enrollment. Having a number to compare to because it didn't seem very high given all those factors. So the context is helpful.
One thing that I would say is helping us in this particular year. Because we could have been up in the 6.5% or 7%. We do have 2 retirements, which generate savings. So that's helping. But we are also seeing a drop in kindergarten enrollment. So which we predicted based on the census data. Last year, we went from 135 to 169 students starting this year. We had to add an 8th classroom and an assistant. Right now, we're at 130 for next year. And based on the birth rates and census data, we were expecting kindergarten to go back to 7. So we have a teaching position and an assistant position as a savings in the budget. So those factors alone, the 2 retirements plus the reduction of a teaching position and an assistant is really what's saving us from being up around 6.5% or 7%. Now, that said, next year, kindergarten may recover and we may be absorbing an additional position. But for the town this year, the enrollment trends were in our favor where they weren't last year.
Makes sense. Thanks, everybody. That was helpful.
Any more questions, or should I move on to the next? All right, great.
Ingrid, I'm sorry, Ingrid. I have one quick question. So am I understanding this correctly? My big bugaboo about the importance of having a math specialist.
Yep.
And this isn't personal. I just see it for my own kids. I just see it at the middle school level when they get behind in math, it's so hard to catch up. So I
Yeah.
really feel strongly. So I know HOD has a full-time developmental math specialist. So we're saying, correct?
H. Holiday has a 1.5. They have a full-time developmental math specialist. It's paid for, funded through the operating budget, and then a 0.5 developmental math teacher funded through Title I.
Okay.
We had up at the Freeman Kennedy 1.5 as well, but we do have somebody that resigned and we were not able to fill it. So we will be back to 1.5 next year at the Freeman Kennedy. And in addition, we're looking to add another full-time developmental math assistant.
I just want to just put it out there. It's so important. It's so hard to get the kids. By the time they're in middle school, they just don't want to be pulled out for extra help. So I'm just very glad to hear that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, the next thing I have on the agenda for tonight, I wanted to update the committee. I believe that we've spoken about this previously, but the district has been working with Cataldo Pro EMS services all throughout the year for various purposes. They have come in 3 times to do COVID testing for us and for our staff members. And they also are and now getting into the vaccine clinic industry. And we have been working with them since October to try to establish a vaccine clinic for all of the Norfolk staff as soon as the vaccine is available through the state. We ended up deciding, Dot Pearl, our director of wellness, has really been persistent. And I would say because we've been really working on this since December, we were first in line. So we've been able to secure dates for a vaccine clinic. We have decided to partner regionally with Rentham, Plainville, and King Philip. And we're going to offer a regional COVID vaccine clinic to all school employees. The tentative dates right now are the 27th and 28th of February. I just have to confirm that. It's the last Saturday and Sunday in February. The Cataldo will be providing all of the staffing for this clinic. It's we are going to have 10 vaccination stations. They will be using staff and potentially some of our public health nurses will be supporting to administer the vaccine. For every vaccine station, we have to have a waiting area with 5 chairs. People after being vaccinated need to remain for 15 minutes when they don't have a reaction to the vaccine. That will also be supervised by medical professionals. We will have an ambulance on site should anybody have an allergic reaction or have additional medical needs. The clinic will be held at the Rentham KP High School in the field house. We expect that we based on preliminary numbers, each district sent out surveys to staff to see how many people would be interested in being vaccinated through the schools. Our initial estimates in Norfolk were about 140. I believe that will go up because we will need to be including our food service staff and some other support staff. And sometimes the first survey, not everybody replies. They're still kind of thinking about it. So we're estimating 200 people from Norfolk with a total of about 800 for all 4 districts. Cataldo has to have a 2-week lead time. So they order the vaccines based on registration on a Monday. The state confirms how many vaccines they have available on Friday, and then the vaccines delivered the following Tuesday. And then the shots are administered the weekend after. We had originally scheduled the vaccine clinic for February vacation. It was going to be held on Thursday and Friday. Unfortunately, at this time, the governor has not opened the vaccine program to teachers yet. So right now it's only people over 75. And so we can't order vaccines until our staff is eligible to be vaccinated. So we had to push that date back. And now we're looking at February, the last weekend in February. And we also, just in case there's continued delay on the state side, we booked the first weekend in March as well. So we're really excited about it. I think we're one of the few districts in the area that's going to be able to offer an on-site option. And we feel it's really critical to make sure that our staff that are coming to work every day, working with 1,000 children every day, are as well protected and safe as possible to continue to provide high quality learning for students. So I do need a vote by the school committee per policy to approve moving forward with a partnership with Cataldo Pro EMS to offer vaccine staff to Norfolk staff, as well as to that will be held at KP and a part of a regional plan. I'm happy to answer questions if anyone has any. Thomas, you're muted.
sorry, I just realized that. Do we have a vote to move forward with the vaccine plan partnering with Cataldo?
I move to approve the proposed partnership with Cataldo Pro EMS for the vaccine clinic on the dates stated for staff of Norfolk Public Schools in conjunction with our regional school partners from Rentham, Plainville, and KP as well.
We have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
No, other than to say, I think it's awesome that we were able to offer this. I mean, I think it's a tremendous value add to the district, and I hope as many people as possible participate.
Thank you, Dr. Lardy, for your vision. Thank you. We
This really
definitely are ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a real tribute to the value of that regional wellness director position, because that has really put a lot of time and research into it. And additionally, just for the committee to know, we are able to bill this to FEMA funds. So the cost of the staffing for the clinic will not go against the district budget. That is being charged to the FEMA grant funding. And again, the vaccine itself is free. We're just being assessed for this cost of staffing. So very excited.
Just before the vote, I just had one question with it. So we're actually, is it a formal agreement we're signing with Cataldo? Is that how this would work?
Yeah.
Um,
We did with the testing.
Okay. So this is a separate agreement that we're doing with them for just the vaccination portion, correct?
Yeah.
I guess just from I'll play the role of risk manager here since that's my daytime position, but I wouldn't mind seeing what the contract looks like, just, or at least having just, I would like to see what's in it just in case, just because what we're dealing with, it's a fantastic idea. I'm certainly all in favor of it. But the sort of devil's in the details, and I would just like to at least see, just to make sure there's the precautions we would need.
Yep, absolutely. Happy to do that. And they have been, they're really the premier group that's offering these offsite, I guess you'd call them offsite. They're not state sponsored, but private clinics.
Right.
And they have over 6,000 employees, and this is really all they're doing right now. So we did look at the liability pieces, but I'm happy to share the contract.
Yeah, I mean, I don't anticipate any problems at all. I just want to be clear with that. It just, I can't quite get past that portion. So I just would, so I have no problem, at this point. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, great. The next thing I wanted to share with the committee, I just wanted to give an update on where we are with our district learning plans. So as you know, at the last meeting, we talked about changes and putting in place increases in live instruction for students at all grade levels. We launched that district-wide on January 19th, and so far have heard some very positive feedback. I think, as we're moving into the third phase of planning, I think it's really important that we have a chance to kind of think about what we've accomplished. So I really wanted to recognize first that, the hard work that our teachers have put in. They have been very fluid, and we've had to change plans and pivot multiple times based on changing conditions across the state. So we were able to bring all of our students back for live in-person learning beginning way back in September. Even though it's in a hybrid model, every student has had the opportunity to come into school for at least 2 days a week for live instruction. Many districts did not begin back in September and did not even begin the hybrid model until later into the fall. So that was a real tribute to the hard work of the team in terms of putting safety protocols in place. Since that time, we have brought in a significant number of our high needs students for full in-person learning that are coming 4 or 5 days a week. We've expanded the number of students receiving special education services who are in the district, as well as the number of students that are English language learners that are now coming 5 days a week, and other students that are at risk. We have, again, completely redefined our platform and have expanded the live instruction on the remote learning days in response to feedback from teachers, as well as from our parent audience, and have worked to strengthen the program throughout. As we move into the next phase, we are looking to start planning to bring more of our students back for live in-person learning and to expand the amount of days that students are in school. As we've talked about several times, there are a number of challenges that the district is facing in coordinating those plans. The two biggest ones are physical space. At the H Olive Day, as everybody on this committee knows, because we have a pending building project, we are out of space at H Olive Day. We are over capacity in that building. Because of the COVID situation, we have many interior office spaces that don't have windows, that don't have high air exchange, that we've had to relocate this year in order to provide effective services to students in a safe environment. As a result, we are currently using the art room, the music room, the library, and 2/3 of the cafeteria as instructional spaces. So the biggest challenge we have with bringing more students to school is physical space at the younger grades. And that's primarily because even with changing safety guidelines, all students are required to be at least 6 feet apart when they have their masks off. So to serve lunch, our cafeteria space, the third of the cafeteria we have open, only fits 39 students at a time. If you have a grade level like first grade where you have 120 students, that's at least 2 lunch periods, possibly 3, and you have to clean and disinfect between lunches. So physical space is our biggest barrier at the H Olive Day School. The other major barrier that we're facing is transportation. So the current state guidelines, we are only allowed to have 25 students on a bus that are typically 75 passenger buses. And so it significantly reduces our ability to get students back and forth on school-based transportation. And as you also know, Norfolk does not have sidewalks, and we don't have safe walking routes to school. So all of our students are either parent transport or take school transportation. And if anybody has been in the drop-off or pickup line, especially today with the snow, we really can't absorb a lot more parents driving on a given day because the line backs out into both main streets on both sides. At the same time, there are some positive trends and some changing circumstances that are helpful to planning for phase 3. I think it's been pretty well publicized in the news lately. The CDC has issued a new study that looked at school-based transmission of COVID-19 in high risk communities or communities that were designated as in the red. That study that was released about 2 weeks ago did show low rates of school-based transmission in those high-risk communities. At the same time, I think you have to really look carefully at that study because the communities that were studied, the 17 districts that were part of that, all had implemented a hybrid type model where they had class sizes of 11 to 17 and students were 6 feet apart in the classroom. So it's promising to look at that study and say it doesn't seem to be widespread community transmission, but it also supports the practices and the programs that we've had in place where we have our students at 6 feet and they have been wearing masks. So it's really affirming that the practices that we have kept transmission low in the schools. In order for us to accommodate more students in coming back to school, we will have to reduce the social distancing in the classroom. So we cannot maintain 6 feet and bring our students back. That being said, there are some new studies coming out that we're looking at that are looking at transmission under different circumstances with less social distancing. Some groups, such as the Harvard Public School of Health, their Healthy Schools report is now stating that they feel that the 3 feet of distancing in the instructional space where kids are wearing masks is safe. But again, these are new emerging studies, so we really feel strongly that we want to get our teachers vaccinated prior to changing the safety protocols that we have in place. And we think it's really critical. We are aggressively moving that timeline forward. And as you just voted, we'll be having holding a vaccine clinic. We also know that there's 2 other things that we're waiting on. The state has told us that they will be releasing revised guidelines for transportation later this week or early next week. They have greater capacity to bring more students to school on a daily basis, and expanding transportation may not require doubling our bus fleets, but we haven't seen the guidance yet. It's expected Friday. Also, the CDC is expecting to release new safety guidelines for schools tomorrow. So those new safety protocols may also give us some additional flexibility. Additionally, the town of Norfolk has now shifted for the first time in 13 weeks. We're now 2 weeks in the yellow. So it seems to be that case counts are coming down in Norfolk as they are across the state. And also, as we're heading into, I was going to say into spring, but it's hard to tell that right now with all the snow outside, but we are moving towards warmer weather. And with warmer weather, we have greater capacity to leverage outdoor space to supplement our instructional spaces. So if you remember back in the fall, we had 2 large tents at each building that people could use for masks or for snack breaks, even if it's misting out or not the ideal weather. It does give us greater capacity. So with all of those conditions and some of the new research and the vaccine clinic that we have scheduled, with all of those conditions, we do believe that we will be able to begin to transition students back to in-person learning, more in-person learning beginning in April. Our priority is preschool and first grade first. The preschool we don't have is primarily parent transportation, and those students don't eat lunch at school. So there's less barriers in bringing our preschool students back than there are in other grades. The preschool team has been actively working on plans for that. And we expect we'll be sending out a survey to see if parents are interested in more days. Some parents have already made alternate arrangements, but we are going to be looking to offer that and move that forward in early April. Again, first grade, our first grade students, our current first grade, missed a good portion of their kindergarten year when school closed. They are also our least successful remote learners, I would say. Remote learning is not ideal for any child, but for younger students, it's really challenging. So that is our next priority of bringing students back, and we'll be looking at that again in early April. Very closely behind that, we'll be looking at grades 2, 3, and 4. And working to facilitate that transition back as safety conditions allow. But I do believe that we'll be looking at those grades in April, as long as the conditions hold and there's no new changes to data or guidelines from the state. Again, pending transportation guidance and the new safety guidelines, we will then work our way up through the grades, trying to prioritize, again, the youngest learners first, because they are the most vulnerable and least successful with the online learning. So that is where we are. I do want to clarify too that the district will continue to offer a remote class at every grade level. So parents who have opted out for this school year will be able to continue in the remote classroom through the remainder of the fiscal year and the remainder of the current school year. So that's where we are. I expect by the next meeting in March, I will be able to provide you greater detail. We'll have our vaccine clinics confirmed. We will have those guidelines from state and on transportation and the revised guidelines from CDC. So I would expect by that point, I can provide the committee at our March meeting with a clearer timeline and dates for return and a clear sense of what the plans will be for each grade level. Happy to take any questions or comments on that.
I think it's a good roadmap plan. I think that the point to make now is that from my standpoint, how I'm interpreting it is illustrative of the fact that the district wants as many students to return safely to school this year as both possible and feasible given some of the logistical challenges that we have. That is the goal, but it is contingent upon, I think, it is contingent upon both Norfolk staying in the yellow, if I'm interpreting that correctly, and maybe depending on guidance we receive from the state, and then the guidelines we're going to get from the state on busing and updated CDC guidance that we're going to receive, that we are not going to, without those pieces of the puzzle fitting, going to kind of just barrel off into bringing everybody back. I think that it's a great plan, as you were saying. I just want for those people who may be watching this after the fact or watching it contemporaneously, whatever they might be doing, to understand that that is the goal. What it's going to look like may be subject to a little bit of change depending on the guidelines that we receive.
Absolutely. And I would say, I'm not sure it's contingent on Norfolk staying in the yellow. The research is suggesting that school-based transmission may still be low, even in a red community, but we're looking for further guidance on it. But it is definitely pending transportation guidance. It is definitely pending new research coming out. I mean, we do know that there's new variants out there. If the state changes protocols, that changes things. It also is contingent upon us being able to get staff appropriately protected. Because we are changing safety protocols, we want to make sure it's critical that our teachers feel safe and are able to be effective in the classroom. And we want them to stay healthy and also be able to be in school. So
absolutely, 100%, yes.
So yes, it is contingent upon some factors. I think what I would say is that we've been working aggressively on this. There's a lot of planning that has to go into it. We are likely going to have to bring in some shipping containers and move additional furniture and equipment out of the HL day. We don't have storage space, we don't have student space, but we don't have storage for anything. So Matt Hafner has been working aggressively on that plan. We are also looking at, as I said, bringing in tents. We're going to have to take all of the tables likely out of the Freeman cafeteria, and we're looking to replace them with desks. Because round tables, there's a lot of dead space and we can't get many kids in when you can only put one person at a table, and then there's a whole barrier. So we've been working really hard on all of those plans, looking for additional safety guidance. We want to also make sure, it's not just our teachers, we want to make sure our students are safe. So
Right.
if we're changing protocol, we really want to make sure that there's, as I said, Harvard School of Health has changed that is a safe decision for students as well. So we're working through all of that, but I am optimistic, and I really do feel if the conditions hold, if the vaccine is available, if there's no significant changes in public health guidelines, that we will be looking at bringing students back pre-K and grade 1 in April, with probably second, third, fourth, not far behind that. I should point out that we are not looking to bring kindergarten back full time this year. The reason for that is our kindergarten students are already in the building 5 days a week. They're in half day every day, which is equivalent to what many, many districts offer for kindergarten. We still have districts across the state doing a half day kindergarten program. Our students also do specials after the day ends, so they're getting beyond what they would get in a typical half day. And again, they're having FaceTime with their teachers every day. We cannot, given the current restrictions, accommodate a kindergarten, first grade, and second grades for lunch. We're looking at probably 3 lunch periods for first, 3 lunch periods for second. That takes a large portion of the day when you have to clean between. We just simply could not bring first and second grade back if we were looking at full day for kindergarten. So.
And full day in kindergarten really just got in this district
2 years ago, right?
4 years ago. I mean, a week ago, and so it's not given every year either. It is in the budget for next year, and especially with 160 something kindergarten kids, certainly. And Dr. Lardy, I was just wondering, for the public's sake, could you explain why the stagger start? Why are we doing pre-K and 1 first, and then 2 and 3? Why the stagger start? Why not open the doors and just let everybody in?
Yep, and again, we're working on the plans. The reason for pre-K and K 1 first. One, they're our most vulnerable learners. We do not offer a remote option for pre-K, and the first graders really do struggle with that. The preschool does not have lunch at school.
Right. I'm sorry. I meant why can't pre-K 1 and 2 go at the same time as 3, 4, 5, and 6? Like, why can't everybody start at the same time? That might be a question. I know why, but
definitely hear that. I think the reason is because we don't have the transportation guidelines from the state. We will have to redo all of those bus routes, confirm with parents if they're changing. We only have our first grade is our smallest grade. We only have 110 students. So when you're looking at only half of those students typically riding the bus, we can probably bring first grade back with just 1 additional bus, and we don't have the logistical barriers for pre-K. So I think that we will be able to bring those students back faster than the rest because there's less logistic involved in those 2 grades. So that's the reason for the stagger. I do think that we will be looking at second, third, and fourth closely behind. But we, again, have to, there's going to be a much more significant impact on lunch services, on staffing, and on transportation for those other grade levels. So I expect those will take a little bit more time. And then again, for 5th and 6th, we would need to make sure that the safety protocols, the new routines, things are working well before we expand it further.
Maybe just an in-person promotion ceremony at the end of the spring for the 4th, 6th graders.
Get all of our students back before the end of the year, but the logistics and all of that we're still working through. So.
Got it.
And I know we're working on a ceremony for students.
My 6th grader wouldn't even notice, so it's okay. It's for me.
We are working right now with King Philip. And with our other partner districts on potentially offering some sort of transition activities for a very different year for our 6th grade students. So we are working with KP and Bentham and Plainville on that. Okay. That's all I have for tonight.
All right. So we are on to committee reports. First up is King Philip.
Okay, we met last night and it was the first open hearing for next year's budget. So that took up about 90% of the meeting. So this will be a short and sweet update. After the budget review, we moved on to reviewing the school committee goals, and we'll be finalizing those in the next meeting. It was also the second reading of the high school program of studies. And that was really it. Mostly budget. And the whole budget presentation is posted to the KP site, I believe, if you want to view all 72 wonderful slides.
Good God.
A light reading.
Yeah, you know.
Sarah, do you remember, or are they up to this point yet? Do they have a potential percentage ask they're looking for at this point? I hadn't had a chance to look at it, and I don't know if that exists or not.
So there were a lot of numbers thrown around. Are you talking about Norfolk's assessment, or are you talking about the overall budget increase?
Their overall percentage increase they're looking for.
I believe it's very close to us. I believe it was like 4.7 something or 4.8. So it's not much higher than what we're talking about now. Norfolk's assessment will be about a 2% increase so far with the first reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we were trending to go up a little bit this year, just population wise. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and
Actually low this year.
Yeah.
So I believe you're right, Sarah. Their overall budget increase is about, I think it's just over 4% for the overall budget. But that then is divvied up to the districts proportionally with enrollment and based on the governor's formula. So this year, the Norfolk assessment is going to be low. Norfolk's sort of the big budget winner. I think it's about 2%. Plainfield's up at 9%. And
9.99.
yeah, and I think Rentham falls between the two. So this is a year, the KP budget the next year. But this year it's low, which is also, I think, will help better support the budget request.
Yeah, definitely. I think Rentham was at 4.5 for their assessment next year. But yeah, Norfolk came out the winner this year.
And I'm sorry, Plainville is 9.9. Is that the percentage?
9.99%.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Hit for Plainville.
Okay.
There's a couple of different factors that unfortunately hit them this year.
Got it. Okay. So that's it for KP, right?
That is it.
All right. Thank you. Going over to policy.
We are bringing forth, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Lardy, we're bringing forth a harassment policy for final reading and vote.
Yeah. And there were no changes to the last, from the last meeting.
Okay. So we would need a motion to accept the harassment policy. I believe it's titled ACAB.
I'll move to accept the harassment policy ACAB.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, so then moving on, we have a partnership renewal from our friends over the PTO, known for such things as presenting us nice gifts at the beginning of this meeting. So we would need a motion to renew the partnership with PTO.
I enthusiastically move to renew our partnership with the PTO.
Do we have a second?
I enthusiastically second.
I'm enjoying the enthusiasm. All right, any further discussion, enthusiastic or not? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Aye.
All right, and let's see, then we're up to, we would need a motion to accept our minutes from the January 12th meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the January 12th meeting.
Second on that?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, and we're looking at March 9th for our next get-together. Does that work for everybody?
So Thomas, I would suggest the next meeting will be the public hearing on the budget, followed by the school committee meeting. Typically, the advisory board asks us to come in the second or third week. So I would suggest, if we could, to do the next school committee Wednesday, the 3rd. We typically do it on a Wednesday night. just so that we don't run into the conflict that we're asked to present the approved budget to the advisory board prior to it having been approved by the committee. Now, I don't know if it may delay their timeline, but that's what we typically try to go the first week of March for the public hearing.
Okay, so we would go Wednesday to 3rd is what you're proposing.
I would suggest, or you could do Tuesday. We typically have done a Wednesday night, but I mean, it doesn't matter. We just try to do it that first week so that we don't run into conflicts with the advisory schedule.
To the extent that other, members of the public might want to view or participate, that I believe if we went on the Tuesday that week, we would conflict with the select board meeting. So in the interest of being a good town partner, maybe we go on Wednesday.
Yeah, so to say that, I think Wednesday makes more sense because they're typically the first. Would that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Sure.
And then we would do the public hearing on the budget at 7 with a regularly scheduled school committee meeting after. And we generally keep the agenda light. So it would be the vote on the budget after the public hearing. And then I will present the update on the return to school plan.
Okay. All right. And then finally, we need a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
So moved.
Second on that one? Okay. Assuming no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And I'm banging on the table. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Everybody have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.